speed chase, 405 is the freeway.
Welcome. This is Neutral Voices, and this is our Tuesday night segment. So we're doing things a little different tonight, so roll with us. And before I get into this, I want to remind you to go to our YouTube page, hit the bell, so you can get all notifications and subscribe. Also, remember to please like and share on all of our social media platforms. So this week, we are actually wrapping up part 3 of a 3-part series. Part 1 was The Vanishing Black Man. Part 2, The Presence of the Black Woman. This week, we are bringing it home with the final phase. We are stronger together, saving the Black family. First, what we want to do is we want to go through the last 2 segments. We watched them together, and we want to recap. We had some great guests, great conversation, great interaction from you, the audience. So we picked out some of those statements. We're each going to give a statement that stuck out to us and discuss our perspective. So tonight, I want to start with somebody who had a lot to say on these segments, but didn't get a lot of time to talk. So let's start with E. Tell us the statement that particularly stuck out to you, and we're going to begin with the first phase, which was the Vanishing Black Man.
Well, one of the biggest statements that stuck out to me at 10 minutes and 22 seconds of that show.
That burned his soul. He know the time.
The newest worst enemy to a black man is the black woman.
And this came from a guest.
It came from Sean.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
a guest we had on our show. Now, I'm trying to figure out how is that our newest worst enemy when she is our greatest asset. Can somebody help me out? Please. Just figure it out. Help me out, please. Help me, please.
Well, from I think there are 2 different perspectives from that, and which Sean never really got a chance to really talk, because when he said that, I think the way he said that, it kind of upset a lot of people, or a lot of people took it personally. But I think what he was saying was, when you look at systems and things that were put in place to remove the black man from certain positions, and I know we can always say that it's by choice so we can control a lot of the narratives in our lives, but in some cases that's just not true, like literally. So in his point of view, and I'm speaking like trying to speak for him because we're just trying to get an understanding, right?
Mm-hmm.
So his thing saying that the black woman has become the enemy of the black man, I think he's more talking about the systems that a lot of the black women, because of poverty, just have to utilize those systems.
Yeah.
So when you begin to get in those systems have rules that you have to abide by in order to maintain the utilization of whatever they're giving you. So I think that's what Sean was saying. So I don't think he was saying, because he did say that the black woman was awesome. The black woman is beautiful. The black woman is strong. He gave her a lot of accolades at the same time.
But the enemy comment overrides those things that he said, because that was a very serious comment. And wherever he was going, he didn't get there. So I understand why that did upset a lot of people.
Got there. He got there, but he didn't get there.
Well, I was just going to say in a nutshell, too, in agreement with what you're saying, James, and everybody else, I think one of his simplified points was that the black woman chooses the funding from the government over the black man being present in the home. And so, and like you said, I don't think he really conveyed it the way he wanted to. And then maybe that attack mode happened. It seemed like that, but I was going to say, but I don't really think it happened that way. But that was not a good thing to hear. So when it came across as the black woman being the worst enemy of the black man, the newest enemy, or whichever way you want to put it, I think it came out and it sounded that way. So that perspective of those hearing it, it wasn't so good.
Is what he said true though? And see, that's before you jump in. Is what he said true in some sense?
From my perspective, from what I know, and I've never been in that position, but I do believe that there are systems in place that forces a black woman to make a hard decision, and knowing that if she keeps that man in that house, she has to let go of a certain amount of money. So not speaking from a personal perspective, but there are women out there that can relate to that, and they know that that's a true statement.
Absolutely.
Yeah. E. Fikes, is what he said true?
I'm gonna say for me personally, I don't think so. I think the black woman is an asset to us black men.
We all agree with that.
Hold on. Let me finish.
Mhm.
And why you guys in the system, they're systematic and everything. It's ways around and understanding. I mean, one of the key points that Stats said was child support. First and foremost, as a black man, yes, I understand the child support laws. So when they try to use, I'm gonna turn you to child support. All right, come on, let's go. Want to know why? Because I understand, I read it, and I got a full understanding what they can and can't do. So when you want to run a brother down to child support every time you don't get your way, if he understands the law of child support, let's go.
Yeah.
Because simple fact, guess what? The game you were playing, I know how to play it too.
Yeah.
So you got to understand, you got to balance the situation out.
But don't it cost to play that game?
I mean, not necessarily.
But don't it cost to play that game?
I mean, okay.
And a lot of this stuff stems in the poverty-stricken areas.
Yeah.
But I mean,
There's so much that comes into play into the whole scenario of this that I would strongly ask our viewing audience and even us to think on a broader scale and not just in our personal space.
I'm
Right.
thinking on a broader scale
This
because a
problem
lot of,
is much larger than us.
but it's,
And we want to reach and convey the message to everybody.
Mhm.
You know, that none of us are excluded from this because it affects all of
Right.
us.
Right.
It's a
it
ripple
affects all
effect.
of us,
Right.
but you have to.
Yes.
You can't just say. I mean, I'm not gonna just say from my personal space. I'm just looking at it from a broader space, just like you looking at it.
Mm.
Because everybody don't have to be falling into that trap.
Right.
If you know
so
the
let's
trap
just-
is there. You know you got to learn how to avoid the trap.
It's real, bro. Let me give an example, Dr.
Okay.
B. Then you get at it. Like me, for example, with my kids. Let's use me, a black male, right?
Mhm.
Going to court because I'm going for child support, right?
Right.
So when you get into court, I'm gonna give you one prime example, man, of what happened to me in front of a judge, right? So go to court and the judge looks at the paperwork, the prosecutor's over here because the prosecutor's there to do their job, to prosecute you, to get money to make you pay child support, right?
Correct.
So the judge looks at the prosecutor's paperwork, and when she looks at the paperwork, she looks at the prosecutor, said, this paperwork's wrong. It's not right. Something's not right. They was trying to say I had not been paying child support, bro. I've always had a job, always paid the support, right? So the lady says, we're going to reschedule this date because the prosecutor, you guys need to go back, get stuff correct, right? So they reschedule. I come back on the rescheduled date. When I get back there, this is what the judge does. She said, why are you back in my courtroom again? I looks at her and I'm, hey, well, you rescheduled. I was here last time you rescheduled. She was like, the paperwork wasn't correct. You guys were supposed to rectify some things. She said, well, if you want something rectified, you better figure it out yourself.
Talking to who?
To me.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And I'm standing here looking at her. I'm like, okay, you said the paperwork wasn't right. I never got to see it, but I ain't gonna say that because you know what's next.
Mhm.
But, bruh, how do you fight the system?
It's not about
Wow.
fighting. I mean, understanding the system. Understanding. I mean, I'm same. Hold on. Same. I could go do the same thing about me. I mean, I've been to child support court. First thing the prosecutor was like, "Well, you're behind." And at the end of the day, my kid's mother was like, "I didn't call for this because he does what he's supposed to do. So why are we here?"
So who took you there? I mean, how did
The prosecutor does that. They does this. They do this. If you're behind, okay, you were behind XYZ dollars. Okay, we're gonna run you to court
Okay.
to try to to see what's going on.
Mm.
First thing my kid's mother said was, "Hey, I ain't asked you to come down here. I ain't asked for this. Why are we here?" That was her question. Why are we
Okay.
here?
And
And then second of all, when we gets to talking, the prosecutor wants to ask her, well, why did this, that, and the other? I'm sitting there and I told the prosecutor myself, I'm sitting right here, ask me. Don't ask her, ask me. Because
think-
at the end of the day, guess what? When it comes to paying bills or doing things for my child, you want some money, here's the funny part about it. When my child calls and asks, can I get $100? Can I get this? Can I get that? Are you gonna give it to him? No, you're not. So don't bother me with this crap no more. And that's exactly what I said in the courtroom. And know what the judge said?
What?
Hey, case dismissed. Have a nice day.
Right.
Okay.
Bottom line.
Okay. Well, and I was gonna say, it sounds like we need to have a show on child support.
Seriously.
That
It's on our
sounds like
list.
that
It's
might
on our
be
list. It's
interesting.
on our list.
But one of the things I was gonna say as we exit that particular comment is that it's not just that, but that's a good point. But I was thinking more like if that woman is on maybe food stamps, for instance, and she's getting assistance from that perspective, or if she's on Section 8 and they're paying her housing, and if she move a man in, I mean, she could be in love with him as the baby's father, but if she moves him in, that's going to change the whole game when it comes to what she's paying and the amount of food stamps she's getting. So I just wanted to put that one out there because that could be what Sean was talking about when he speaks of system.
And we've discussed also, we discussed the other night that a lot of times it's a choice because the man has been replaced intentionally by welfare. So, I mean, we would be silly to think that that's not how it was intended to be by a lot of people who don't care anything about the people that it's affecting. So before we go to the next point, we want to ask you as an audience, do you agree with Sean's statement? Is the Black woman the new enemy to the Black man? So let us know.
Even if you disagree. Not if you disagree. If you disagree.
Not if you don't listen. Let us know your thoughts, as always, because your voice matters, Clarence. So, Clarence, what statement stuck out to you most for the Vanishing Black Man segment?
Well, I want to talk about this because I made this point, and Ian and I were talking about this before we came on air. I spoke about the identity crisis that the Black man have and the perception that the world has of the Black man. Now, I want to say this. I made the comment, and I used Bill Cosby as a reference, and I use athletes as a reference. When we are a commodity, we are very valuable. Even in slavery time, when we were doing work, we were very valuable. But after that, after we were freed by American standards or America's standard, we became devalued. We were called lazy. We were called vagrants. Our value just plummeted. But if you look at it, let's go over just the last 100 years, some of the technological advances that we see. Black men were at the forefront of a lot of those. America was built by Black men, not only on their backs, but Washington, D.C. was designed by Black men. Teaching, education, engineering, all of that was brought on by Black men. So what I'm saying is our identity changed or was convoluted when we stopped being property. And they don't see us as a value anymore. And I just wanted to make that statement that I'm not downing the Black man. I'm just saying the perception of Black men in America, their value has plummeted. And the people don't think that they have value unless they're dribbling the ball, running the football, acting or whatever, doing things like that. So we don't have a value, everyday value, I would say.
And so when you say that, I mean, are you praising your fellow Black men, brothers in the community, if we just bring it home? Is that something that you would say is happening on a regular basis? A lot of times I know women don't necessarily do that for each other. So is that something that you can say that you do if we just keep it personal?
Me personally? Yes.
Yeah. When you see guys doing something great.
Yes, I celebrate everybody that's doing great that's around me. Now, here's the thing, and this is where we as Black men, this is one of the things we have to get out of our sensibility. Just because one man is doing something a little bit better than us, we don't have to be jealous of that.
Exactly.
We can actually celebrate him and get behind him, ask him how to put how you do this and things, learn from it. But yes, I truly celebrate everybody. But the problem is we don't do it as a whole.
Okay. And that's what I'm saying. So even, when we have the older men and the younger men, so, why do we have so many men it's like the whole sagging thing, for instance. So a lot of times people, they look at the Black man, they look at the young Black man, and that particular image in itself. And if it's a trend, it's been here for a very long time. Somebody's not getting a message across to the point where they're changing the way they look on the outside. And image matters when these young men have to walk into these places to fill out a job application. And so I'm just wondering, as far as our older men, and we speak of leadership in our communities, do we have the right leadership in place? And is it working?
That's a yes and a no answer. And I would say yes, there are proper leadership and people in proper leadership places in the city that's trying to do it. But what's the main leadership that our teenagers and our young people watch? The media, stars, things like that. So as long as it's fashionable, it's going to still happen.
No matter
Right.
how much I tell a young man, pull up your pants. When he see his favorite artist on stage doing the same thing, as long as it's fashionable and it's impressionable, it's going to be like that. No matter
Which-
how
yeah.
much I say, it's a better way.
And which leads me to say this, and then we can move on from this, which is one of my concerns is when do we speak against that, or when do we protest from that perspective as far as those artists that you're saying? These are our influencers of our younger generation of men. And so in order for us to begin to see the positive, speak the positive, we have to see the change, embrace the change, be a part of the change. And then I think we'll be able to see some great things happening with our young people.
Go
So
ahead. But I want to answer that. I'm going to put a pin in that.
yeah, I was
We
going to
do
say, I
that.
know
Go
that's
ahead,
something to come. And so just not
I'm
to
gonna
steer
tell
off
you
of
that,
this.
to answer your first question about why we don't speak up. I think we're not putting ourselves in a position. We have strong Black men in this community, period. Honestly. And we're not being bold enough to stand out and make that statement and make that stand to our young boys in our community. You do not have to look at little baby this, big baby that, and this. You don't have to look at
To
them.
media and
Yeah, you don't have to look
music.
to media because the biggest thing about it is if you don't understand what's in the room, how you gonna know what's outside the room?
Mhm.
And that's one of the key things that we, as older men, me personally, as my son, yes, my son and my nephews, yes, I'm around them. They see how I maneuver. They see how I act. They see how I dress. So they understand, hey, I see something out of pocket, I'm going to say something. But we need to stand up and be more with the community when we see another little boy that's not even no kin to us. Hey, man, put your pants up, bro. And just be
Right.
honest about
These young fellas ain't respecting that, bro. They
Because of
different.
some
they,
fact
they
we-
talk different. They so aggressive right now.
it. Yeah, they're aggressive.
They're
And
extremely aggressive. So you say that first thing you hear is like, "Oh, old G man, what you talking about?"
Yeah.
Mhm.
well, I mean, that's the thing. That's why I say we fell out of place because when I was growing up, an old head to say something to me, first thing I'm saying, all right, got you. Because
Correct.
simple fact, he's steering me the right way. Even though he might be doing something out of pocket,
Right.
but he's gonna make sure I'm steered the right way so I don't be out here, doing something that I ain't supposed to be doing.
Right. So that's why I'm saying, so we having this conversation for a reason. And so as we get to obviously trying to put something out there that we would consider a solution, I'm saying then I think that's one of the things that we need to bring to the table before this week is out.
Yeah.
Right.
Like what can a parent do that may have a child that's in that position?
Right.
What can you do?
Before we get to our third point that we want to discuss on the segment of the Vanishing Black Man, I just want to remind you to join us tomorrow, 8:30, same time, as we do conclude this phase. Clarence, do you have anything else that you wanted to touch on?
Yes, and it goes in this conversation that we were just having, and this is a point that was pointed out to us by William Curry, one of our viewers, is that the negative connotation of the Black man was rampant on this set.
So was.
It was so thick. It was so
It was
thick,
thick.
that the connotation of, but that's the problem. That goes into that perception. Even us as Black men that see ourselves, it's a hard thing to see ourselves sometimes in positive lights when all the atmosphere around you
It's negative.
is negative. Black men, one thing is, we're not vanishing. We have not gone anywhere. But I got a question. If we were vanishing, and if we did go somewhere, if Black men left this earth today, left the earth today, every Black man left the earth today, what would it look like?
Right. That's a good thing to ponder. One of the things that I mentioned was from my perspective of the man vanishing, and you can own it or not, but a lot of times in a room where a Black man should have a voice, he's silent. And so I was talking about there's many ways to vanish. And so that is one of the ways by not speaking up when you need to.
Amen. Amen. And I'm going to bring it back to this, Clarence. So you said nothing positive was said on that show, but you sat through that show, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So as a man, as a Black man who wants the community to come together, going back to her statement about stepping, just a minute, about stepping, leave the
Okay.
camera right here, I'm
Okay.
not done,
Okay.
about stepping into position and leading, you were here the night when nothing positive was said.
Okay.
Did you stand up and say exactly what you said now?
Yes. But I need you to put on your listening ears. I said this came from a viewer. That there was nothing. I said this came. I didn't say I said this. I said this came from a viewer. So put on your listening ears. I didn't say.
Okay, and so, but what Jill is saying too.
She heard me. She heard me.
So,
I was
yeah,
gonna
and
answer her
so,
question.
right. But I just want to make sure, as you're answering it, that you understand from this perspective that we had how many black men in the
Man, it
room?
was 5 of us.
Wait.
It was 6 of us in the room.
And we had how many with a microphone in his hand that could have said anything and could have led it any direction. So he that holds the mic has the power.
Okay.
And all I'm
Can-
saying is,
can-
where did you allow it to go?
Thank
Okay.
you.
First of all, I didn't allow it to go anywhere.
Clearly.
And I stood on the fact that black men, as I just said, black men wasn't vanishing. I said that on the show. I gave our perception. I gave where we were. I spoke about how positive we were. I spoke on that show, that same show. Go back and watch it. Anybody that wanted to speak,
Well,
go
see,
back and watch it.
Hold on,
spoke
Clarence. Hold on, Clarence. 'Cause I'm gonna step in here. When they said nothing positive was said, if you looked at the woman show, the woman was powerful. The woman was this. The woman was that. The woman, was just boom.
Mhm.
When we looked at, yes, it was. When you looked at our show,
Had
yes, it
on
was.
house shoes too.
No, I had to break into that one.
No,
But-
I'm just saying.
But when we
So negative.
when we said anything about the black man, we never said how powerful the black man was, how smart the black man was, how protective the black man was. We never spoke them words.
I did say they were afraid of a black man with a dream.
You did say that.
Okay,
yes.
that little part. But if
I
you look
said,
at,
listen
if you
to all my
listen to,
part.
no, if you listen to it, and you really watched it, man.
Now we can
that
ponder
show-
that and go
That
back
show
and forth.
was that show was very negative about black.
That
men.
is not
It
gonna.
really was.
That's not gonna
And
help
I-
us
and
move
I-
forward tonight.
And you know something, I was in the room and I should have spoke up and said something,
Yeah,
but I didn't.
Good way to own it.
And
There
so
you
at
go.
the
That's
end of the
what I
day,
wanted to hear.
Yeah,
it was nothing really positive said
and now you
about the
have an
black man.
opportunity.
Oh, I mean, they already know I'm powerful. We
Hit
powerful.
'em with it.
And I say this all the time. I'm around 2 powerful men every day.
Yes.
So I mean, I learned from them. At the end of the day, I learned from a lot of people that's around me that are men. So at the end of the day, we are very powerful. We are very strong. We are very voiceful. But we need to step up and be louder.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all I'm
Amazing.
saying.
And I'm
That's
glad
it.
you mentioned about the show about the women, because we're going to go there next. So the presence of the black woman. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what we took away, what key points we took away from that. And again, we want to remind you to please like, subscribe, share, comment, let us know what you're thinking.
E.
Any particular statements stick out to us?
Go ahead.
Go
I'll
ahead.
say from a certain perspective, whether you put this in a negative or positive, one of the things that Miss Avery shared was that a lot of people misunderstand her position because of the woman she is, and that she is mistaken and looked at as aggressive sometimes. And so that was one of the things that stood out, because I've heard many black women say that, and I've heard a lot of black men refer to women,
Right.
black women that way.
Right. And, looking at this from the outside, because we all know that I've not experienced the things that, we're discussing, especially on this segment. But I will tell you that as a hiring manager, I have literally had black men and white men who worked for me, with me, who came to me about the black women for acting the same as the white women, but because she was black, there was a completely different perspective. So I might not have experienced it, but I've seen it firsthand. I've absolutely seen it. And, something that stuck out to me is when Sean said, well, actually, I'm just kidding. We're on a different one. So something that stuck out to me was when we were talking about in the women's segment about leadership. Like, I honestly think that at this point, nobody knows who's supposed to lead. And the reason I say that is I think there's a power struggle. So, this is not to down anybody, but in a lot of situations, just statistically as well, black women have been left to run the household because intentionally the men were put in prison. They were taken out of the household. So a woman is forced to do what? She is forced to stand up and lead.
Can I
So,
hear you?
no, not yet. So you do that for so long, and then you have a good man who comes along, who wants to lead, who wants to be in that position. But the woman struggles with that because she has had to be the leader this entire time. So I also feel like there's that power struggle. And a lot of that is created by external sources that have been put in place to keep the Black man and the Black woman far apart.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Miss Avery, and much love for Miss Avery. But in that whole conversation of what you're talking about, Jill, and connect yours, Doc V, there's one thing that as Sean was misunderstood and he was jumped on, Miss Avery said something that was pretty much celebrated and glossed over, and it was just as negative as Sean saying the Black man, the Black woman is the Black man's enemy. And that is that she allows her husband or her mate to be the man that he is. Now, that thought right there, and that's a thought with a lot of women, Black or white, but we're talking about the Black woman. That thought that you have to allow a Black man to be a man, that's saying that we're already lesser of, or we don't have the ability to stand up and accommodate to be the position that we're in, that we have to ask permission, we have to be allowed, we have to wait until the gates are open for us to be a man. That's not
I think
true.
that would be misconstruing what she
That's
actually
not
meant.
what she said. That's not what she meant. I mean,
That's
what
not how
said-
she meant it?
No, that's how she meant it.
Well,
That's
I
because
can't
that's
say
how
she was
meant it.
here. It could have been clarified then, but from
But y'all was cool. Y'all
from my
was cool to
understanding,
put words in Sean's mouth all of a sudden.
No.
All of a sudden, I don't think
well,
that's...
I mean, some of you
come on,
did.
let's make it
Some of
happen.
you did put words in his mouth. I refuse to do that. And just like with Miss Avery, I refuse to do that. There's opportunity here to say this, even from my own personal experience. I believe what she was saying and what she meant was that sometimes when you're sharing your day, your I'll say your heartache, your struggles, and then somebody overlooks that and go right into what they want to talk about. She was saying that it makes her feel some type of way. So she gets in this zone where she's upset, she's angry. And so whenever he feels like it, then she allows him to be
Those
a
are
certain
two separate
person.
conversations.
Two
I
separate
remember that
conversations.
conversation. Those are two separate
I'm just
conversations.
saying, I do want to put that out there. So
Yes.
I'm not sure as far as that, but
Those
I'm
two
saying
different
she didn't
ones.
seem like she was.
No, and I'm not saying she said it maliciously, but
Mhm.
what I'm saying is it was a malicious statement.
She said it
that-
maliciously.
That
I would have to listen to that again.
Yeah, well, yeah, you
but
might wanna
I'm
go back
saying
and
from the
watch it.
entire
Mhm.
conversation.
Yes. Again, and I'm not saying that she said it maliciously, but it's a malicious statement stating that the Black man has to wait for the woman to give him permission to be the man, to take that role, to be able to, and that's not the case.
And you are talking about one woman's opinion that was in that black
I'm-
velvet room.
Oh my God!
speaking.
When
Well,
Sean said what
I'm
he
just saying,
said,
and
when
again,
Sean said what he
you
said,
keep,
now it's
you
oh my
keep bringing up
goodness.
Sean. I didn't trip on what
Yeah.
Sean said
and
because I understood when he talked about systematic
He
systems
never
or
said anything
situations.
about systematic
When we got
systems,
into that, yes, I listened closely.
Okay, I did too.
And sometimes you do have to listen to what a person is not saying. And so all I'm saying is when you say people, iced over it or whatever, they ignored it. I'm saying I don't know where the conversation was at that point, but maybe it was just overlooked and people didn't really hear it or didn't catch it.
Again, no, I'm not saying, again, she said it maliciously, but I'm saying it's a common thought.
Yeah.
I'm not saying by percentage or whatever, but it is a common
Exactly.
thought in the Black neighborhood. And and we go back and we keep bringing up Sean up, but I'm going to say that's why he was saying these entities are between the Black and the white, the Black man and the Black woman, because these ideas, these systems,
mindset.
these are things that, are keeping us apart. And we're going to talk about on our
Yes.
show tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
the biggest thing, man, is
Yeah.
perspective.
Mhm.
I mean, because we got a Black man and we got a Black woman and we got two different perspectives.
Right.
Right.
Like a total different disagreement right there.
Right.
But the biggest thing, man, I want us to take away, because we're just recapping, right? Correct.
Yes.
So we don't have to beat up tonight. We just want the main focus is to encourage people, man, to join the show tomorrow.
Right.
So we definitely got some guests coming in tomorrow. The panel doesn't even know about this yet. But we got
Shocker.
That's yeah.
But
That's what led us
it's
to show
definitely
number
important.
one.
So tomorrow we do have some very, very, very intelligent people, man, that work in this space from a spiritual standpoint to a counseling standpoint, where they'll be able to give some professional opinions towards things to help us move forward and make this all make sense. So there's just not so much opinionated nor perspective
Right.
of what we're seeing. So my question to the panel before we leave the set tonight, when we talked about the vanishing Black man,
Mm-hmm.
what was the most pertinent thing from that conversation that night?
Oh, pick me.
You're picked.
You're picked.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Was it the black man? I thought it was the
The Vanishing Black Man.
No, I thought it was the other one. But I know what you're getting at when you said is the man. How did you phrase it? Oh Lord.
It's the black man failing in America. It's a black man
failing
failing in America.
That was the most powerful thing you said, and we all said yes. That was yes, we all did. Go back and look.
No, because I mentioned my father.
It was at the end. It was at the end of the segment.
I did. So I
Did
didn't
you not
agree
say
with
that
you
at the end
that
of the
black
segment?
men are failing.
And then you
Because
go through the list and say,
check out our Neutral Voices post, and I posted a whole bunch of them.
So Doc V, you did mention your father. You mentioned Joe Jordan.
I mentioned some guys because I didn't want to take up the whole
Right.
show.
Correct.
Because there's a lot of them.
I mean, but when we say like the biggest thing that we want to keep in mind, like we can always say, man, there are great men.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of
Right.
great things going on,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of great success. But the
Yeah.
reality is, if we look at the picture in its entirety, how is the black man represented in its entirety?
And it depends on, and I get it, the black men in your circle, and like you said, look outside of who you're around, etc. And everybody need to do that. So when I do that, and I actually look with my binoculars, I see a lot of successful black men. But now I understand where you're going with this. I also see a need for black men to stand up. And that's why I said they need to exercise their voice. And so, yes, there is a place for him to stand. There, he needs to rise up. And that's why I said, you're not dead.
Yes.
You're sleeping. And
Right.
you've heard me say, not just the church is a sleeping giant. But
Right.
there are black men that I would consider sleeping giants because you are awesome and amazing, but you have to stand up and make things happen.
So the biggest perspective is that the black man is extremely relevant.
Yes.
He is
Absolutely.
definitely
He's not
relevant.
vanished, but he is
Forever,
He
always.
is here. We have been quiet, though. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I'm just saying his voice needs to be louder.
See,
That's
that's
Yeah. As a collective, as a whole, as a body, yes, the black man. But I'm going to tell you, there are individual successes. And the problem is we have not yet come together. Not saying that we can't. We have not yet come together to compile all our individual successes to make a roaring sound, a roaring change. There are, as everybody said, yes. But I'm saying as a collective, as an overall entity, until we come together, all of us,
On purpose.
intentionally.
Yes.
I mean, every black man from every walk of life, because you got some that think they reach a plateau of finances that they're no longer black and they don't have black issues.
Right.
What I'm saying is until we each all come together as a collective, we're failing each other. So if we're failing each other, yes, we're failing.
Right. Right.
okay. Reality. So black male, we're good. We're here. We're relevant. We're present. But there's so many things that we need to do. We need to unite. We need to be louder. We need to be boisterous, and we need to be political.
Mhm.
There are a lot of systems that are in place that we need to address. So we have a lot of political issues.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? But then we also bring a lot of chaos amongst ourselves.
Yes.
mm-hmm.
So we take that away from the black man's, right?
Mhm.
So let's go to the woman. The presence of the black woman in America today. What did we take away from that show?
We talked about, for me, for my understanding, one of the things was the women that's outside of the home in pajama pants and walking around in fluffies. That was one of the things. So we need to get our etiquette back and quick. And I'm saying that for all ages because I've seen some older ones and some young ones. So
Anything you
that's
see-
an urgency.
The black woman. See how it gets so peaceful and calm. And
No,
quiet?
because
does.
you know one of
Like,
the things that
the
Miss
whole
Avery
atmosphere
said,
changes.
and I loved it because she gave, and I'm not going to do it like she did, but she talked about black women being leaders and business owners, etc. And she went down a list, and so I love that, and that's one of the reasons why I'm saying that's all great, but there's so many places where we do have to stop name calling. We use biatches quite a bit in that particular episode. And so black women need to look in the mirror and identify with who they are. So that whole self-actualization piece is very important. You have to know who you are and whose you are and stop calling yourself all these other negative names. And then you're upset when somebody else referred to you as that. So that was one of the things that I took away from that. Don't need to happen, but it's a reality that is happening all the time. You're driving down the street, listening to a certain music. That's cool. Okay, keep it down low. But when you actually blast it and you sing it in front of other people, in front of your young sisters, okay, we have a problem here. And then especially in front of your brothers that you want to be respected by. So I have a problem with that.
Power struggle. Is the black woman fighting the black man for the position of leadership?
Yes.
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 And I'm going to say no. She's not fighting him. I think she's doing what she has to do. So if there is a need in the house, in the home, she's going to step into it because that's how she was built.
Right.
And so even all the way back, and we don't have time to go back to slavery and all of that, but the master knew, bring her in the house, and she was taking care of his kids. And so that's just the way it was. She was taking care of him, his house, and everything.
Right.
And you ain't nothing like a black woman.
See, it's amazing when you
Ain't nothing like a black woman.
You absorb the energy and the hype when she talks about the black woman.
I am a black
You see what I'm
woman.
saying?
I own it.
You can relate to that, and
I
you
can
stand
relate.
on that.
And
So,
that's why I was saying for the black men, we had too many black men in the house. So you should have took the position and ran with it. Step into your kingdom role, be the king, wear the crown, and speak like you a king.
Right. Right.
It's definitely a mindset thing, and tomorrow hopefully we could shed some light on the fact of the mindset and how you could be in a space and not really know you're in that space, and you could be protecting and supporting and fighting for that space and really not be aware of it. Your aggressiveness to control and maintain that space that you have stepped into. So tomorrow, hopefully, man, we can share a whole lot of light on that to make it all make sense so that people can understand better.
Before we close out, I just want to say we always appreciate all of our guests that come into the building because without different perspectives, we wouldn't be able to have these discussions. So while we might not always agree or people commenting might not agree, they don't always agree with us either. So again, we do want to say that we always appreciate our guests. So I want James to close us out, but I want to remind you to please watch us tomorrow at 8:30 Wednesday for this part 3 of our 3-part segment.
Before you leave tonight, we just want to encourage everybody, our viewing audience in black, white, green, orange, don't care what color you are. Be the best that you could be at all times, wherever you are in life. God has a calling on every one of our lives, man. At the end of every conversation we have, it's a spiritual journey. Believe in him or don't believe in him. God is true, God is real, and God can change. So these are things that we're discussing that God will intervene and move us to the place where we need to be and we were called to be. This is Neutral Voices. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube page, we ask that you do that. We definitely need your support there. Continue to support, continue to follow. Tomorrow night, 8:30 is extremely important, and we strongly encourage you to tune in, share with your family, black brothers, black sisters, white sisters, Hispanic sisters, Hispanic brothers, all of y'all out there. This is Neutral Voices. We love you. We appreciate you. We'll see you guys tomorrow at 8:30. Thank you.
Chase 4-5 is the freeway, slinging my, banging my, swinging my coup. DeVille school.